Hello and welcome to this episode of Math with Martinez. In today's video, we are going to be solving equations. Now, there are some basic steps that we want to follow in order to solve equations. They are listed here in this box. The first step, number one, is to distribute. After you've taken care of distributing, then you move on to step number 2 to simplify each side by combining like terms. Your third step is going to be to move the variables to one side. And then last of all, we want to solve using our inverse operations that we discussed just previously. Now, let's go ahead and do a few examples here together. That way you have these notes and you can get the hang of solving equations. Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to begin with this very first step, and that is to apply the distribution. Now, we won't always do all the steps, so I want to make sure that you see here lots of different examples. But in this first example, we do need to distribute. I know this because I've got these parentheses right here. Those parentheses indicate that I need to distribute the 6 and multiply it to the n inside those parentheses. That's going to give us 6n. And then the 6 times the 5, those are going to multiply and give us a positive 30. We finish writing the rest of our equation. Equals 2. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we continue to solve. To solve for our variable, we're going to go ahead and now look at step number 2. Is there any simplifying that we can do? Can we combine this term and this term together? What do you all think? Can we combine those? No, they are not like terms. So we'll move on to step number 3, which is to move our variables to one side. Well, how many variables do I have? I only have this one variable, this little n here. So, wow, we're already down here at step number 4. Step number 4 is then to use our inverse operations. Now, I want to make a little note here as I highlight this final step. When we are using our inverse operations, we want to make sure that the first of our inverse operations, that first inverse operation is to do the additive inverses. So first we'll do our additive inverse, and that's going to be to take and identify what is the additive inverse of 30. It is a negative 30. And to maintain equality, whatever we do to one side, we must do to the other side. That, ladies and gentlemen, is going to give us 6n. That's a zero pair, so we no longer have that constant, and that is going to then be equal to a negative 28. Now, after we take care of that additive inverse, we want to go ahead and do the multiplicative. The multiplicative inverse is then next. And so looking here, the 6 that is in front of the n, they are multiplying, so I need to take the inverse of that. That is going to be to divide by 6. Whatever we do on one side, we do on the other. And so that 6 divided by 6 is, let me get that, 6 divided by 6 is just 1, or an n, and it will equal, what is negative 28 over 6? Well, ladies and gentlemen, that fraction can simplify. Both of those numbers are divisible by a 2, so we'll have a negative 14 over a 3. And that is our final answer. I'm going to go ahead and highlight. No, I'll just go ahead and circle it. There we are. All right, so that was our first. Let's go ahead and look now at this third example. We'll do a few of the evens here in the video and then do odds when we meet together. So let's go ahead and look at this first one. I've got parentheses once again. So I'm looking here at the top. Yes, we need to distribute. Let's go ahead and do that. 2 times the 2, that's going to be 4. 2 times a negative 7y, that's going to be a negative 14y. Then we continue writing the rest of our equation. Step number 2 in our solving process is to simplify by combining like terms. Let's go ahead and highlight that. We want to simplify by combining like terms. Do we have some like terms? We sure do. Look at this. We've got this 4 and the negative 5. We can combine that 4 and negative 5 because they are on the same side. 4 minus 5 gives us the result of a negative 14y. That can't combine with anyone, but it will be a negative 1 when we combine those constants. Continue writing the rest of your equations. Then, the next step, step number 3 in our solving of equations, is to move the variables to one side. Well, I only have one variable term, so we don't need to worry about step number 3. We move on to step number 4. And step number 4, the first part of it, is to solve using that additive inverse. And our additive inverse, right here with the negative 1, what is its additive inverse? It is a positive 1. We'll do that on each side. These are now a 0 pair, the negative 1 and positive 1. So we are left with a negative, let me do this in black. We are left with a negative 14y equals 112 when we add. And then last of all is that multiplicative inverse, so that we can get y isolated. That means instead of multiplying y with a negative 14, we need to divide. And whatever we do on one side, we do to the other. When we divide a 112 by a negative 14, you might need to grab your calculator to do that. What is that going to give you guys? What is 112 divided by a negative 14? That's going to be our value of y. What does that equal? All right, well, you should have had a negative 8 as your result. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we have now gone through 2 examples. Let's do just a couple more here. In example number 5, I'm looking here and like the previous ones, unlike the previous ones, I don't have any parentheses. I don't have parentheses like these, so I do not need to take care of this first step of distribution. Well, let's look and see. Can I simplify? Do I have any like terms on this side? Can I combine those two? No. How about on the other side of our equation? No, I can't move those. I can't simplify those. They are not like each other. So then we move on to the next step, step number 3, which is to move our variable to one side. Now, I want us to be very intentional in this movement. When we are moving, make a little note down here, you want to move the lesser variable. Move that smaller variable. That's what we're going to want to do here. So in this case, which of these terms with the variable a is lesser? Which one is the smaller one? The 10a or the negative 6a? Well, the smaller one is the negative 6a, so we need to move it. We need to move it by adding it on each side. So we're going to add 6a on each side so that it is eliminated on, or a zero pair has been generated on that right side. This is going to give us the new equation, 16a minus 7 equals 21. We've taken care of that third step. Now we're on to step number 4 to solve using our additive inverse. First, additive inverse here, what would that mean we would need to add on each side, ladies and gentlemen? Yes, we need to add 7 on each side. Add 7 on each side, and that will give us 16a equals 28. And our final step is to use that multiplicative inverse. This is in step number 4, the multiplicative inverse. What does that mean we need to divide by on each side, y'all? We need to be dividing by 16. Dividing by 16 is what will allow us to isolate our a. And can you all simplify that fraction? What is 28 over 16 as a simplified fraction? That would be 7 over 4. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, we've got this last one here. Let's go ahead and begin working on problem 7. This will be the last one for our video. So, going from the top. Can we distribute? Take a look here. Can we apply distribution? We sure can. Look at that. It's got parentheses. So when I distribute that negative 5 to the 8p, that's going to give us a negative 40p. And then that negative 5 with the positive 6 is going to be a negative 30. Write the rest of your equation on that right-hand side. And there we have it. We have taken care of distributing. Now, what about simplifying on the sides? Are there like terms on the right side or on the left side? No, we do not have like terms on one side of our equation. So we move on to our third step, which is to move the variable to one side. And like we made our note here in green, we want to move the lesser variable. So which one is our lesser variable, you guys? The lesser variable, or on a number line, it would be the number farthest to the left. If you're focusing on the negative 40p and the negative 5p, the one that is lesser is the negative 40. So we will add 40p to both of the sides. On the left side, that is a zero pair, so we are left with the negative 30 equals 5, and then that negative 5 plus the 40p is going to be a positive 35p. All right, just about done. We are now on our fourth and final step. We want to go ahead and solve first by looking for our additive inverse. What is our additive inverse that we need to go ahead and add on both sides? The additive inverse of 5 is a negative 5, so we need to subtract 5 on each side, giving us 35p equals negative 35 when you add the negative 30 and the negative 5. Last step in our process, we are here in step number 4, but we're not done because p is not by itself. P is multiplying with 35. So ladies and gentlemen, what would be the multiplicative inverse of multiplying by 35? That is to divide. That is to divide by 35 on each side. And that means our final answer, P, is equal to what, you guys? What is it equal to? That would be a -1. And I'm so glad we had one that ended this way as we conclude our video. It is totally fine if your final answer is here written like this with your variable on the right side. This means that right there, actually, that -1 equals P, it means the same thing as writing P equals -1. So you can be happy in noting that those mean the same thing. So it is totally fine that our final answer was written with the variable on the right instead of on the left. That is all for today's video. Guys, if you had any questions, comments, or concerns, can you go ahead and share those now? And until next time, stay fired up.